How's it going, everybody? Nerds Rising here, and welcome back to the Nerd Cave. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some Ultra League battles featuring one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, and that is Gengar. Now, Gengar, it's kind of interesting to use. If you take a look on PvPoke, I'm not going to pull it up today just for the sake of time, but if you take a look on PvPoke, Gengar is in like the top 10-ish highest attack stats in the Ultra League. It has over 200 attack, which is absolutely insane. So this thing, it hits super, super hard, but it also is one of the frailest Pokemon in the Ultra League, as you can imagine, considering how high its attack set is. So it cannot take any hits whatsoever, but that makes it very, very fun to use. And you don't see them too often. You do see them occasionally, but in my opinion, this thing is incredibly strong if you know how to use it correctly. So we're going to be taking a look at some Gengar action today. To pair it up with the Gengar, I have the XL Best Buddy Clefable. This thing I'm sure you guys have seen multiple times across other channels. This thing with the new Fairy Wind buff is super strong. So not the spiciest pick ever, but I have had this for a while and I haven't really gotten to use it that much because Charm got nerfed right after I built it. So this is my first time using the newly buffed Clefable as well. And then we have Tapu Fini there, which is going to be our safe switch to hopefully lure out their best answer to that Clefable in the back. So you guys are in for some very entertaining battles. There's some crazy booms, some very nice plays, and just some fun battles overall. So this team, it did pretty well overall. I went 16-9 on the day. So I'm not going to tell you it's a top meta team, but it's also not the spiciest team ever either. So I think it does have some play. So let's just get right into the battles here, and let's see what Gengar can do for us today. So getting into the first battle here, we have a Registeel lead. And Registeel, I haven't used the Gengar in a while, so I wasn't 100% sure who wins this matchup in the one shield. So you're going to see me throw the Shadow Ball after 8 Shadow Claws here. This is going to be CMP to the Zap Cannon, and they do shield it, which is nice. And here I was thinking, Gengar could probably live a Zap Cannon pretty comfortably, right? Well, wrong. That does so much damage, and I realized there that I was going to get farmed down if I tried to commit to another Shadow Ball, so I'm forced to bring in the Fini, but unfortunately this Registeel is still very, very healthy, so I made a massive mistake there by not shielding my Gengar. So my Tapu Fini has a ton of work to do here, and we really do need to get rid of this Registeel, otherwise we're just going to get fully swept by the Registeel. So they do let the next Surf go, and of course they got the debuff, and they're already at another move, so I'm going to be forced to double shield right away, and they get another attack drop as well, which is really bad. I don't think that this Surf will KO now because of that attack drop, but the opponent commits their shield, so I make the catch onto the Gengar. I was hoping that I could CMP sack there, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get my move off in time. But I think now when I bring back in the Fini, it's still very healthy because the lock-ons didn't do too much, and since we're not debuffed anymore, we can fully farm all the way down, and hopefully that was their best answer to Fairy, and they're bringing in a Cresselia. So Cresselia obviously does have access to Grass Knot, but the fact that they're bringing in a Cresselia here tells me that they don't have the best answer to Fairy types in the back. So my hope here is that now that the Reggie is gone, despite me kind of misplaying the lead there, that maybe Clefable will be able to sweep up and back. And to make matters even better for us, they're not running Grass Knot. We tank the damage, we bring in the Clefable, and here's where you're going to see just how ridiculously bulky Clefable is. Tanks the Mood Blast, doesn't even do half, and they have a Giratina altered in back, and this is just going to be a good game. Clefable now, what Clefable didn't do as well when it had Charm was it didn't do super well in neutral matchups. It did have a lot of bulk to it, but after the Charm nerf, it just was way too slow, and despite its bulk, it just wasn't able to get to charge moves fast enough in a lot of neutral matchups. But now, the Fairy Wind, as you're going to see there, we take out the Giratina super comfortably. We get a little BM catch at the end. Didn't need to catch that. We would still have lived the move on the Clefable, but we catch it anyway. And now Clefable is just so strong with its spammy Fairy Wind and very hard-hitting charge move. So good game in game 1 there. Game 2, I put the Registeels next to each other just because this one, I think I played this one a lot better. Again, we're going to go up to the Zap Cannon here on 8 Shadow Claws. Throw the Shadow Ball. Again, they shield. And this time, I am definitely going to be shielding up my Gengar because, as I mentioned before, Gengar is super frail. And despite the fact that Reggie is super defense-weighted and doesn't hit that hard, still, Zap Cannon, as you saw, basically one-shots the Gengar. So we shield up. Again, I throw on CMP, and this time they let it go. And I will double shield now. I definitely do just want to get rid of this thing. I do not want it to see my fairies. And it looks like we actually would win the 2 shield here because we're at the back-to-back Shadow Punches. And Shadow Punch would be KOing here, so they just let it go. I think that's the right play by them. And now I will safe switch into the Tapu Fini here, just in case they have another answer to my fairies in the back. And they're staying in with the Trevenant here. And despite the fact that we're a water type, this is actually not the worst situation ever for the Tapu Fini, because Moonblast, as you're about to see, does huge damage. And despite the buff to Seed Bomb in terms of damage, they're still going to have to throw another move. They're not going to be able to farm me down. And they still have a shield, but now we still have a very healthy Gengar and a full health Clefable on the back. We're going to come in with the Gengar, farm them all the way down. We have the Shadow Ball loaded, and they have their own Tapu Fini. I have just so much energy here. I'm going to bait, but recognizing even if they call the bait and they do shield it, I could just triple Shadow Punch them and then bring in the Clefable. So the bait there was just a very safe play overall. I land the Shadow Ball, and now, again, you guys are going to see the XL Clefable is just going to tank this damage. No problem whatsoever. Moonblast doesn't even do half. And yeah, Clefable is just a beast, guys. This thing, I mean, you're seeing over there 0, 14, 11. I think this is like a rank 6 at level 50. And that might seem like a pretty steep investment, but the nice thing is only 10k for second charge move. And also it's only a 1 kilometer walking for an XL candy, which is really nice. So next battle here we have a Venusaur, and you might be wondering why I'm shielding up Frenzy Plants on the Gengar, and that is because Frenzy Plant does like 2/3 of Gengar's health. It does so much where if you let even one go, as you're about to see, I'm going to let the second one go here, they're going to be able to farm me all the way down before I get to a third Shadow Ball. That's just how glassy Gengar is. It can't even tank a Frenzy Plant from a Venusaur, so we do get both shields here, but that's a little bit unfortunate. I was kind of thinking they might try to call a bait at some point, but they shield both of my Shadow Balls, which is a little rough. Maybe you could argue I should have baited, but you know, baiting is just such a risky game. I do typically like to just full send the nukes, but the nice thing is at least we're able to take this thing out. And again, I'm calling here that Venusaur was their only answer to Fairy, and sure enough, they're bringing in their own Togekiss. And again, if we were running Charm here, there's no way we'd make it to a Meteor match against this Togekiss, but we have Fairy Wind. The Meteor match does so much damage, and we're going to bring in the Tapu Fini. We farm them all the way down just as they're getting to the Ancient Power, and they've got a Walrein in the back, and we still have a shield. So this is a good game. And here I'm recognizing that there's no reason for me to shield the first move here, because I still live in Earthquake, and the opponent might try to bait me, realizing they're in a kind of a tough spot here. So I think my loose con here would be to shield an Icicle Spear, so I let it go, and they did bait. And now we're very comfortably going to make the Moonblast. I will shield here. I'm not sure. We might even live in Earthquake from that health range, but I wasn't going to take any chances. I shield up, and yeah, this is just going to be a GG here. So as you're seeing, Clefable putting in work, Gengar putting in work, and we win game 3. And I do have some losses in here for you guys. This team does struggle a bit against Obstagoon leads as well as a normal type lead, but you don't really see too many normal types. The main threat is going to be an Obstagoon lead, because Obstagoons usually have something like a Nidoqueen or a Poison type in the back. So this battle, as you see, we had a Shadow Swamp lead. We catch the Hydro Cannon on our Fini. And again, as you've seen before, Trevenant isn't the worst thing for Tapu Fini. Unfortunately, they did ship with the Hydro Cannon first, so we're not able to make the Moonblast, but was the opponent counting? And they weren't. They do shield, and that is massive for me, because now I can come in with a Gengar here and get ahead on energy by quite a bit. I do throw on CMP here to their potential Shadow Ball, and they know they can live a Shadow Punch, so I full send the Shadow Ball, and they let it go. The Swampert is going to come back in, and again, you guys are going to see me throw on CMP. I think throwing on CMP is very important when you're running an attack-weighted Pokemon like Gengar, because you always want to be maximizing your energy, and you also have to realize that Gengar is basically going to win CMP against everything in the lead. As you see again, I go up to CMP, and I catch this time on the Clefable, and I bank some energy just in case I end up needing that energy in the back, and now I should be able to farm all the way down. And I do have an energy lead now. And the opponent has a Shadow Raptor in the back. So super spicy pick. And again, the opponent's about to make an incredibly high level play here, recognizing that they could barely live a Meteor match. So they call it. But unfortunately for them, I'm just so spammy. I make another move. And now this game is just basically over. I honestly think they're probably in Shadow Punch range. But just to be safe, I will make them expend all their energy here, because now they're double debuffed, and they're going to be quadruple debuffed now, and now a Shadow Punch definitely would KO. And even if somehow they did have a charge move stored there, again, Gengar is going to be winning CMP against basically everything in the game, at least in the Ultra League. So very well played there. Moving into the next battle, we have a Dragonite. So this is pretty rough for Gengar, just because, as you're going to see here, the Dragon Breaths are just chunking like crazy, nearly getting us to half health before they even make a move. But here I recognize they're probably going to be wanting to throw right away, knowing I was getting close to the Shadow Ball. So I do catch after 6 Shadow Claws, which is going to be right as they're getting to their claw. So we catch the claw on the Feeny, and they answer with a Swampert. So here I'm thinking, I don't commit to the Moonblast because I'm thinking if they're bringing in the Swampert, they are probably running Sludge Wave, and they are running Sludge Wave. But fortunately, we're still able to tank it, and they're forced to throw some energy. So we're just going to let our Feeny go down here. All we really are trying to do is get ourselves basically either a shield or energy advantage, which we unfortunately didn't get there, but we do now get ourselves a huge energy advantage on the Gengar here, which is what I want, because the Gengar with energy, guys, is just so strong. Again, as you see, I throw on CMP, and they shield, so I'm definitely going to be shielding it myself now and farming down. And they bring back in the Dragonite, and this time, the Dragonite. This time, I'm just full sending the Shadow Ball, and they let it go. And now, they bring back in the Swampert. I bank a Shadow Punch here, but it does not matter because they have a Togekiss back. And as you guys have seen already, Clefable is actually a pretty good anti-fairy now as well, just because it's so spammy with the Fairy Winds and the Meteor Mashes. Now, before, if we were running a Charm Clefable, this would basically be a Charm Off, and we probably lose this match because Togekiss beats us to the charge moves, and we already had a little bit of a health disadvantage. So Charm Clefable definitely loses that matchup. That's just how strong the Fairy Wind Clefable is now. So next battle, very similar to the Dragonite. They will be getting to their move again at 6 Shadow Claws, so I will try to catch again, and the opponent throws right away again, and we're going to catch another resisted move onto our Tapu Fini. I do like to try to use the Tapu Fini, basically just to, like I said, draw out the best answer they have to a Fairy, as well as just tanking damage and getting ourselves either a shield or energy advantage. As you see, I get the shield advantage, so now go ahead, Sludge Bomb me, Shadow Ball me, whatever you want, Gengar. I'm not going to be shielding this. And they do bait, and they're going to be forced to throw again right away, and they do. So this is great. This is enough health, I think, on the opponent's Gengar, where I should be able to come in and get a very nice farm down, and probably only have to shield one time. Unfortunately, we are going to take quite a bit of fast move damage. Those Shadow Claws are just no joke. It's insane how much they do, but we do have so much energy now. And if they bring back in that Gyarados, which they do, a Shadow Ball will easily be one-shotting. So I'm going to full send it here. And now I bank another Shadow Punch for later, and I bring in the Clefable. And this is a very, very dominant matchup for Clefable. Again, we're double resisting Dragon Breath, and the Aqua Tails just do not hit that hard. And again, the opponent has a Giratina altered in back, and this game is just so over. It's not even funny. We do have to keep in mind we have that move banked, but we're not even going to need it because I can just let this go very comfortably. Overfarm enough to where I'm going to be able to outpace the Gyarados here, and yeah, that's just going to be a good game. I throw on CMP here. I believe this is just a Dragon Claw anyway, but we'll throw on CMP. We'll take out the Giratina, and we'll easily make the Moonblast here, and this should KO the Gyarados. Both of the charge moves on Clefable are very hard hitting. Moonblast does with stab 132 damage for only 60 energy, so it's a very, very powerful move, despite Clefable being a fairly defense-weighted Pokemon. So GG to the opponent there. In this matchup, we have a Nidoqueen, and this is a really nice matchup for Gengar, but the crazy thing is, regular Nidoqueen barely lives a Shadow Ball, so we actually would lose the Zero Shield here, but I'm recognizing if they're staying in here and they're letting that go, they're probably just sacking it and going straight for the Earth Power, which is why I shielded, but I was expecting them to be weak somewhere in back, which is why I did shield the Gengar. I want to preserve the health on this. And unfortunately, they do call the bait there. I was shocked. I thought for sure they would respect the Shadow Ball, especially since I full sent it on the Nidoqueen. And they have a Jellicent in the back. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. We're down 2 shields. But here what I'm recognizing is Tapu Fini has the worst matchup against the Venusaur. It basically can do nothing against Venusaur. So I'm bringing it against the Jelly. And I'm going to throw my Moonblast on CMP, which is crucial. They're not going to be able to overfarm. This isn't going to quite KO them, but this does not allow them to overfarm since they're stuck in the CMP tie. And this should allow me to come in now with the Gengar, farm all the way down. And despite the fact that they still have 2 shields, we're going to come out of here with like 2.5 Shadow Punches loaded. And at this point, all we have to do is just go straight Shadow Punch, because I think we would make 3. But just to be safe, what I'll do is I'll throw both of them here. I think I'm only 2 away from the 3rd, but I'm just going to bring in the Clefable now, because as you saw earlier in one of the previous matches, Clefable does tank 1 Sludge Bomb, so the opponent had to build up to back-to-back there, and even so, if they did that, we would outpace with a Gengar, so basically I won that game just because of good energy management with the Gengar, and that's what Gengar is all about, managing that energy. And here, guys, I kept this one in just so nobody thinks that this team is super dominant, because we have an Obstagoon lead. we safe switch into the Feeny, and we're met with a Nidoqueen, and this is just looking super rough. The nice thing is we do have Water Gun and Surf, so we are going to be able to force shields, but really what I need to do is take back Switch because the Obstagoon is going to be triple resisting all the moves that Gengar can know. Well, not that it can know, but that we are running currently. So really, there's no amount of energy advantage that's going to be able to allow me to flip that matchup versus the Goon. So I really needed Switch, but the opponent does double shield, and they have an Earth Power loaded already. So I'm just going to bring in the Gengar and just hope that they bait. But as you're going to see here, the opponent very wisely does not bait. They one-shot the Gengar from full health, and they're going to get to a Poison Fang before I make a Meteor Mash. And this is just looking really rough. I really can't shield this. I need Clefable to be able to 2v1 the backline, basically 3v1 this team. So I am going to get rid of the Nidoqueen here. We should still be able to take out the Obstagoon. We just have to hope that they're very weak in the back. And they've got a Mew. And yeah, I just surrendered. There was no win con whatsoever. So yeah, if you see a Goon and they have a Poison type in the back, unless they're double weak to it, like say they had a Machamp in the back in that last battle, we might have been able to sweep. But yeah, most of the time opponents are not going to be building teams that are double weak to Fairy if they're running Goon lead. So we did have the champ lead there, as you see. And the nice thing about this team is you may not be noticing this, but we're triple strong against fighters. So I didn't really need to switch out of that right away. I stay in, I grab both shields with the Gengar, and now we're going to bring in the bulky Clefable to tank all this damage. And the opponent must not have realized just how spammy we are because we get to a Meteor Mash before they even make a second move. And they're down 2 shields. And yeah, they realized they just made a terrible mistake there, and they are out of that match. So yeah, they just misplayed that, but that's where you're seeing a lot of times people will panic and try to switch out right away, but if you have a good matchup somewhere else for the lead, you can just stay in. Unfortunately, in this lead here, we have a Walrein, but the game lags a ton, and we're now 3 Powder Snows, or 3 Shadow Claws behind, and they're already at their second Icicle Spear just as we're getting to the Shadow Ball. So this is really unfortunate. The lag really hurt us there, so I'm just going to let my Gengar go down, but yeah, we're in a really tough spot here because of that lag. Unfortunately, the game is still lagging, and I have no idea how much energy they have just because there's so much lag right now. So I do shield it. I'm figuring they probably are at the Earthquake here. Again, I'm lagging. I'm like mashing my Wi-Fi, trying to turn my Wi-Fi off. I finally get it to turn off, and I thought I shielded that, but apparently I didn't shield that. Yeah, the lag was really annoying me yesterday. I don't know what was going on, but I do, at the very least, land the Moonblast. I am up to shield, and they have a Giratina in back. So again, I think these fairies right now in this meta are just so strong. The opponent knew I was low there, so I catch the Dragon Claw onto the Clefable, and yeah, they have a Charizard in back, which is normally a really, really rough for the Clefable, but up a shield, we should be fine because these Moonblasts are going to hit so ridiculously hard, as you see there. Does nearly half, and I think I do respect the Blast Burn there. Yeah, I think if the opponent double baits there, they probably win, but the opponent is not a masturbator, and they are going to full send the Blast Burn once again, as you're going to see. As you're seeing, the wing attacks are adding up there, so yeah, if they double bait, then their next Blast Burn probably does KO me. But as you're going to see here, Moonblast does get their shield, and I think, I wasn't sure if I would outpace or not, so I just play it safe, and I make the snipe with a Feeny, and Feeny is going to take out the Charizard there. And the Giratina in back is going to have to throw, or they're going to get hit with a Moonblast. They don't throw. They commit to the farm down, probably recognizing they kind of had to commit to the farm down. And at this point, we're not in one move range on the Clefable. We could definitely tank a Shadow Sneak. I think that's what they're running, or I can't remember if they were running Ancient Power or not, but yeah, they realized that game was over and they surrendered. So as you guys are seeing, lots of things that are core broken by the Clefable, and Gengar just does so well at getting shields down because it hits so hard that, yeah, it's just a really good situation if you can get shields down. So here, shout out to Heartfire here, one of my subscribers. Really good battle we had. I tried to catch his Icicle Spear there onto my Tapu Fini. Unfortunately, he does show great discipline over farming, and he tries to call a bait here, I believe, and I'm able to land the Moonblast, but recognizes he can still live it, and is going to basically just take out my Feeny here and maintain switch advantage. So really nicely played on the lead. Does still have switch, but I do have quite a bit of energy on my Gengar, so I'm going to come in here and farm down, and again, unless he has like a dark type in the back or a normal type, there are very few things that want to tank energy from a Gengar that has this much of an energy head start. So we're full sending the Shadow Ball again. He tries to call the bait, and now I bring in the Clefable, and there's a Buzzwole in the back, and this game is basically already over. I think at this point, if you're the opponent, your only win con here is to try to call a Meteor Mash bait, because there's no reason for me to bait. This is just such a dominant matchup. Baiting for me would be a potential lose con, having him call a Meteor Mash and then somehow taking care of my Clefable. But yeah, so I'm just full sending the Moonblast. I get both shields. At this point, I can just safely let my Clefable go down because I have a move already banked on my Gengar. And the Swampert does, I believe, at least have one Hydro, maybe almost two Hydros loaded, but again, Gengar's going to be winning CMP against literally everything. So I accidentally over-tapped there, but it doesn't matter. We still have 2 shields, and we're just going to go for the Shadow Ball at this point. No Bubble It, and that's still going to be a good game. So unfortunately, opponent there played well, but just did not call the moves correctly. And yeah, we just had a really good matchup in the back for that Buzzwole. So GG there, and I think we've got maybe 3 battles left, guys. So this is a very, very difficult Pokemon to see on the lead. Gengar kind of is our only answer to Charizard. Again, there's some more lag. Here, I'm expecting the opponent to go one more. He's already at the Blast Burn. I'm expecting him to throw one more and then probably bait. So I make the catch onto the Feeny, and we caught a Dragon Claw that's double resisted. So we did get a shield, and unfortunately, the opponent does have a Registeel on back. And this is just a very, very difficult team comp, a Charizard and a Registeel, because Gengar, again, is going to be our both. Let's try again. Our Gengar is going to be the best answer to both the Reggie and the Charizard. And the fact that they have both on the team, it's just going to be a little too much for Gengar, because fortunately, we do get this thing fairly low, but we're just not going to have enough health to take care of that Charizard after we get rid of the Reggie, because we're going to have to expend shields here on the Reggie, and the opponent did bank, I think, at least 1 Claw in the back, and yeah, very nice snipe here. Opponent comes in and snipes, and now I'm going to be forced to give up my last shield here. I should just about be able to take care of this Charizard here. I believe I'm going to throw the Shadow Claw and then throw the next one after one more on CMP. And this is perfect because the opponent's not going to be able to farm me down. And this should just barely not KO, and it doesn't. So we're playing this out as best as we can. I can now come in with the Clefable and take this out. And my only chance here is if the opponent has something very weak in the back to this Clefable. They've already shown us 2 good answers to it. So I'm expecting after this Reggie gets taken care of that they may be weak in the back. I am just barely not going to take the Reggie out. He's not going to get to another move. But unfortunately, there's a Shadow Swamp in back. And despite my best efforts, what you guys are going to see is 1 Hydro will do half of our remaining health. And this Moonblast, despite being not super effective, but doing tons and tons of damage, it's just not going to be enough. And yeah, I surrender there. The opponent would get to another Hydro Cannon, and that would have been a GG. So I surrendered. No shame in surrendering, guys. If you know you're basically out of win cons, I have absolutely no problem with surrendering. I'm definitely not one that surrenders early. I play it out until I'm like basically 100% sure that there's no win cons, and then I will surrender. So this battle, we have a Scizor lead. Really, really tough lead for the Gengar. This thing does technically beat our whole team. So what I do here is I throw the second Shadow Punch on CMP there. I don't allow them to farm down, which is massive. So I get both of their shields, and at this point, I'm just going to let my Gengar go down, come in with the Feeny. And again, I'm going to hope that this is their best answer to the Fairy typing. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to farm down there, so I throw just as they're getting to the Iron Head. I take it out, and what you're going to see is the opponent has a Venusaur in the back. So they had 2 good answers to Fairy, and Gengar's already gone. So this is just going to be extremely, extremely tough. I do throw the Surf here. I'm really hoping they don't try to farm me down. Unfortunately, they do throw some energy here. I needed to just get as much damage off as I could to get this thing into Meteor Mash range. But what you're going to see is Clefable is going to shield. I did have 1 shield left, but they are going to get to another Sludge Bomb. And unfortunately, Meteor Mash is just not going to be quite enough. You could run Psychic on the Clefable, but Psychic just doesn't do as well in most other matchups. It would be nice to have for the poison coverage, but it just makes Clefable worse. The opponent actually has a Machamp in the back, and at this point I was thinking, maybe I can do this. I do one-shot the Machamp. Can I farm down the Venusaur? And no, they live on 1 HP. That was a heartbreaking loss there, but very well played. As you see, I stayed in despite it looking grim and nearly pulled off the dub. But last battle here, this is actually the reason I put the Gengar in the lead. I was expecting to see tons of Cresselia, but I literally only saw like 2 Cresselia the entire 25 battles, which is really annoying. And they make a mistake as well. They throw after 7, so they don't even fake the Future Sight, so I let that go. And I throw just before they make another move, and they let it go. And Gengar takes out the Cresselia, and we have so much energy still. And they have a Salazzle, so Salazzle is one of the few poison types that I don't mind seeing with the Feeny, because we do massive damage to it. And now the Water Guns are just going to chunk so much. And again, the opponent has a Giratina altered in back, and this one is actually running Dragon Breath as well. So this game is already over. Respect to the opponent for playing it out, and they're on Ancient Power, which just makes it even worse for them. But there's just literally nothing they can do here because Clefable is just so incredibly thick. and we still have 2 shields, I believe. Yeah, we still have 2 shields, so this is just game over. This Wind Blast will just probably barely not KO, but we can just farm down. Yeah, we're just going to farm down, and we're not going to be shielding up the Clefable at all. We're just going to save our shields for the Tapu Fini, and that is just going to be a G to the G. So Salazzle, not super tough, just because Poison Fangs, still, they chunk, but it's running Incinerate, so the Incinerates aren't going to chunk the Fini that much, and they realize it was over there, and yeah, that's going to be a GG. So, hope you guys enjoyed today's battles. Again, not the spiciest team ever, also not the most meta team ever. It was a lot of fun to use. I really just enjoy using Gengar. This thing just hits so incredibly hard, and the nice thing is, even if you're running the triple Ghost moveset like I am, you could be running Focus Blast or Sludge Bomb or Psychic, Sludge Wave. There's all kinds of moves that Gengar can run, so you could pretty much fake just about any move and at the very least grab shields. Just be aware that if you're going to run the triple Ghost moveset, which I think makes Gengar extremely strong in most of the neutral matchups, you will be fully walled by something like an Obstagoon or a Snorlax, and at that point, if you can't win Switch on the lead, then you're just SOL, really. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments if you did. And if you are new to the channel, if you are not subscribed, please consider doing so, because the more subscribers we can get, the more Pokemon my wife will let me play.